It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
We got to speak directly with the YouTube algorithm team, and they used some language that to me was like, whoa, I didn't even realize this. They will say things like, well, what we're seeing, it looks like this is happening. And it makes you realize, like, wait a second, they've built an AI here. This is not like just a piece of code that just takes in information and spits out the answer. But that's not how it works at all. This thing is learning. This thing is in some way thinking, right? And so even the YouTube algorithm team doesn't have the answers.
There are a lot of creators out there who have millions of views, some billions of views, especially on short form platforms like TikTok and Shorts, and aren't making any money or hardly making any money at all. Just because you're getting that much reach does not necessarily mean it's going to translate into income. Well, today's guest, Charles Cornell, is somebody who started out with some videos that went extremely viral, like extremely viral. We're going to talk about what those videos were and how that happened, but then how he still wasn't making any money. And we're going to talk about how he transitioned and took some of that audience into a business that not only allows him to generate income, but one that he is proud of. I know a lot of musicians struggle with that, right? They want to do a certain kind of video and then they get known for it, but then they don't want to do that anymore. It's almost like a cover of something. And that's not what exactly Charles did. But again, I fanboy a little bit in the beginning of this episode, but then we get over that and then we get into the business, and Charles spills the beans for sure as far as like a lot of the things that is working, that is not working, where he's going with this. And I think this is going to be really inspirational for you. And if you are a creator, especially somebody who's getting some reach on some of these short form platforms, you're definitely going to want to listen in. Here he is.
You're listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, a show that's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He's been a business owner for 15 years and still has doubts that he has to fight off, Pat Flynn.
With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hiring shouldn't be a hassle or a drain on your budget. Upwork is your one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent, saving you time and keeping costs in check all in one place. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in the way that they staff key projects and initiatives by assessing a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, AI, design, administration support, marketing, and more. And I've personally used them myself and can vouch for them. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, get help drafting a job post, or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier, simpler, and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. Go there now. Charles, welcome to the SPI podcast. Thanks for being here, man.
Pat, thanks so much for having me, man.
I just have to say, I'm a huge fan. I love your YouTube channel. Actually, my wife introduced me to the channel when you were blowing up for a lot of like meme related videos that you were doing.
Yeah.
And the piano that you accompanied with it. And it was just a really genius thing I'd never seen before. And my entire family were fans of your stuff. So I'm just going to get the fanboying out of the way really quick before. But before I have you actually share with everybody who's listening who might not know or yet discovered your channel, like what do you do, Charles? What's your channel about?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you actually mentioned that because that's how I sort of ran across the opportunity to start building something. But what it morphed into and what I do now is essentially I run a music education channel, and we talk a lot about popular music. We talk a lot about film scores, video game scores, like anything where the music is like, hey, you might not have thought about this as you were listening to it, but if you give it a closer listen, you'd be shocked at like how good this stuff actually is. So it's a combination of like that, and then also looking at a lot of music that sometimes we overlook as being like, it's just pop music. Like there's nothing cool in that. Like it's just whatever. And sometimes there's actually really great stuff in it. So the whole idea of the channel is to kind of like break down music in a way that's super understandable for people that maybe don't have as much of a theory background, and in a way that they can get enthusiastic and inspired about music and maybe even, go out and try it for themselves.
Were you always a creator? What were you doing before those videos like took off?
So the first videos that took off were the ones where I was like, what I was doing is I'd basically like go through a video that was, maybe like a viral video. The first ones that went viral were from Cardi B, which that material was pretty easy to use for this. But basically what you do is you like figure out the notes of speech, because when we're talking, like we're fluctuating our pitch, right? So I am talking, even though if I were to sing like that, it's more obvious. But even without doing that, everything that comes out of your vocal cords is a pitch and can be actually defined as a note on an instrument. So what I was doing is I was just breaking down speech into notes and then playing along with it and then adding harmony, adding chords and stuff. So to answer your question about, was I a creator beforehand? Short answer is no. I remember the day before the Cardi B video went viral, I had 52 subscribers on YouTube. And that was just from, random different. I let me put it this way. I had always wanted to be a creator. That was like probably for 10 years before it happened. I was like, my dream was, man, if I could do anything, I would just build an audience online and just make content that's important to me that can hopefully be cool for other people. And so that had been a goal for a long time. So, as often, I'm sure, you've talked to so many people that have the same experience, but when something looks like an overnight success, often it's 10 years in the making, and just happened to be the right place, right time, and one of those preparation meets opportunity things. Because like when it happened, I kind of was like, oh, this is that thing. Like this is my opportunity to build it into something. And I just kind of tried to run with it from there. And here we are about almost a little less than 4 years later.
Yeah, and you're doing incredible things. You have an online course now. Your channel's over, in the millions, which is incredible. So first of all, congratulations on your success.
Thanks, man.
I want to definitely dive into later in this interview about the transition from getting known for the Cardi B videos, essentially, and then transitioning into then like stuff that you wanted to create. Because I'm sure there's a push and pull that a lot of people can resonate with as far as like, well, I don't want to be known as that guy, and I have bigger things to share and more of an impact I can make. So we'll get into that. But before you had the YouTube channel, what were you doing for work? You're in music. What were you doing?
So I graduated college in 2015, went to school for jazz and did the whole conservatory thing. And from that point up until about 2019, for the next 4 years, really, kind of floundered around, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was playing gigs, of course, like I was a professional, working musician. And I taught private students. So I had a studio. I mean, at one point, I think, I had a small studio out of like a piano shop in a mall, and I had like 20 students through there and stuff like that. So I was doing the whole, playing gigs and teaching students thing, which I knew from a pretty early point wasn't really for me in terms of like teaching, especially like teaching beginner piano to like little kids. It's just not really where I feel like I'm most effective. There are people who are amazing at that, and I just realized it kind of wasn't me. But so I was doing that for quite a while, and then for a brief period of time, with a couple of friends, it's kind of nuts because it's my core team now. But at that point, we started a little company just making social media content for local businesses in our area.
Oh, wow.
Our whole idea was just like getting people to like just start telling stories, and trying to get people to. What ended up happening was we would post content for a lot of these local businesses, and the content got incredible response. Nothing, went like viral necessarily. We had a couple semi-viral things, but for the most part, it was just about like getting that company's customer base and the local support to be excited about like, oh yeah, these people, like, we did a lot of stuff in like outdoor motorsports and stuff. So, motorcycles, snowmobiles, that kind of stuff. And so it was a lot of like telling stories about, their customers and whatnot. And we hit a point where we were like, okay, where we were, this is in Northern New York, where I'm from. And it was like, nobody can really pay for this. Like there's just not a market where people are willing to drop the money that larger companies drop on good social media content and marketing. And so we were like, well, why don't we go somewhere that we can? And at this point, I was making $0. Like I was paying all the money that was coming in, which was beans. I was paying to my guys, and I was making nothing. And I did that because I was also playing gigs and teaching a few students. So I was able to at least pay my rent, which at the time was like $400, And so it was like, we were really operating on like small time, like more or less hadn't even started. Right. And we had this idea. We were like, well, why don't we bring the company to a place where there might be more opportunity? And we started thinking about cities. And the only thing that made sense, because I'm a pretty avid skier, I was like, well, Denver's the only city that makes any sense to move to. So we decided, my girlfriend Leanne and I, and a couple of my friends who were helping me with business at the time, we all decided, okay, let's do it. Let's move to Denver. So we moved to Denver. We had no clients set up. We had no money saved. And I had no idea what we were going to do to get clients, if that's even what we were going to do at all. I figured maybe I'd pick up a couple of, private students and try to go get some gigs and stuff like that and try to make ends meet. And then we made the decision, why don't we sign a 16-month lease at an apartment that we rented sight unseen for twice the money that we had ever spent in rent? And neither Leanne or I had jobs. And we had no, like I said, we had no savings. We had no idea what we were going to do. We were just like, I don't know, this feels right. Let's go to Denver. And it was 3 weeks later, Leanne had a job at a Fortune 500 company, almost by chance. She looked across off of our apartment building and saw a building with a big name on it and was like, that'll do. And she went and got a job there. And then about a week after that, I bought a piano for $300 from a Guitar Center. And on the way home, I was sitting in the car and I was reading, ironically, it started with Trump tweets. I was reading some ridiculous Trump tweets, and I was just like, God, this would be hilarious if it was a song. And so I just went home with my new piano and I just started like making a couple. And that reminded me of this thing that I had seen years ago when I was in college, where the speech to notes thing, I had seen somebody else do it, a couple people actually. And I was like, oh yeah, I wonder if I could do that. Like, I wonder if I'm capable of, like, first of all, figuring out the notes, and then second of all, coming up with some harmony that would go with it. And so I made a couple, and I think it was like the second or third one I made was the Cardi B video that went like ultra viral.
No shot.
So
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was literally like 4 weeks after we moved here with no plan and no money. And like everything just exploded. So, you want to talk about serendipity, like why on earth
Yeah.
did we come here? We still don't know. But it, it worked out.
It's so funny. We hear stories like this a lot here on the show where people who are in dire need finally figure something out. And it almost is like you need that, almost like something at stake to get encouraged enough to find an opportunity to go out there and expand outside of your comfort zone, or even just to get creative, if you will, like you had just done. So the Cardi B video goes live. Where did you put it? Did you put it on like TikTok or Reels?
TikTok,
where did it go?
was the first place. TikTok was the first place. I believe I did. I also put it on my Instagram because I had been starting to post these on Instagram. But Leanne had told me, she was like, everybody's talking about TikTok. Like, you should put it on TikTok. And I was like, I don't know, really? And then I remembered because, I had consumed quite a bit of like Gary Vee content. And I know like, Gary's whole thing is like, dude, just put it everywhere. Just put it all over the place. Like, and he's just like,
oh my gosh, that was a great impression.
And he was just like, put it everywhere. And I remembered that. And I said, all right, I guess I should put it on TikTok. And I did. And the next morning I woke up and there was a DM on Instagram from a random person who said, hey, I put your TikTok video on Twitter and Cardi B retweeted it. And I was like, what? And this person was like, do you have a Twitter? And I was like, no, but I'll make one, I guess. And then I did. And the day this happened, like I said, I had 52 YouTube subscribers. And I had maybe a couple hundred followers on Instagram who were all mostly like just friends and people I knew. And nobody on TikTok because, this had just I just decided to make the TikTok and put it up. And it went viral everywhere, like on every platform, to the point where within a couple of weeks, I had a 6-figure following on 5 platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. It was like, I couldn't even make sense. It was just nuts. It was insane.
Oh man.
And I'm immediately thinking, so then I started making more of these videos. And I think about this now and I'm like, wow, I'm like, what am I doing now? Like, I need to really get back to where I was at that point. Cause I made 2 of these a day. I was making 2 of these videos and they were only 30 seconds long, but they were a tremendous amount of work. Because I had to transcribe and learn to play it and then learn the physical aspect of trying to play it and then come up with harmony to play with it. And I was doing 2 of these a day. Like I was making them and putting them out on the same day. So I had no backlog. I was just like slamming, working through these things. And I think about that now and I'm like, oh my God, I'd lose my mind. Like I would not be able to keep that together. And I just hammered through and just kept going. And I go back and look at some of the things I made and I was like, why did I make that? Like that didn't need to be made. That was totally unnecessary. But at the time I was just like, anything I could get my hands on, old Vines, like yes, like everything I could possibly think of. I was like, let me do this one. Sure. Put it out. And it was just, it didn't really slow down.
How are you feeling as far as like a body of work that would potentially now be monetizable? And did it even turn into money? I mean, going viral is one thing, but I know a lot of people with millions of views who, aren't making any money. So
yeah, and that was the biggest thing that kind of drew me to, okay, what's the next phase of this? Because the reality is you can't really make money on 30-second content, especially this is before shorts was a thing. And before there was any type of monetization, TikTok, I've never made a dime off of. Instagram, I've never made a dime off of. And so it was in the beginning. The other problem too is that in order to monetize your channel, you have to have 1,000 subs, which was no problem. But 4,000 watch hours was a problem when my videos were 10 seconds long, because it didn't matter if they got 1 million views. It was still not that much watch time. So it took a while to really kind of start to get to a point where I could monetize the channel, to the point where I straight up ran out of money because I didn't have anything saved. Right. So it was like, it didn't take very long after we moved here and I had no money left. And there was a month where Leanne had to pay the full rent. And I was like, oh man. But I was like, I told her and she knew. I was like, like it's just going to be a little bit of time. But then once this thing gets unlocked, we're good. Like we can work with this. And she knew that and she was totally down for that. And so, and it took, I'm trying to remember how long after I initially like went viral that I got my first paycheck from YouTube, but it wasn't very much. I think my first YouTube paycheck was like $1,800 or something, which at the time I was like, great. Like that's all I need. That's perfect. And I also got very lucky in that from the very first paycheck I got from YouTube, it was enough that I could live on. So like I was able to do it full time from day one, which is, I know it's pretty rare. And I got really, really lucky that that was the case. But it enabled me to really put a lot of focus into it and figure out where it was going to go from there.
So where did it go from there? Because you've obviously stopped doing those viral type videos. And how did you start to create content that was, more you, if you will? Like what was the decision there? What was the struggle even?
It was interesting because I didn't actually think about the whole aspect of like, oh, I can create, music education. But it did make a lot of sense to me to say, well, why don't I make a video where I just tell people how I'm doing this?
Yeah.
Explain this process from a music theory standpoint. Because I always felt like I was relatively okay at explaining concepts in like music theory and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, I can tell people how I'm doing this and hope it might make a lot of sense to some people. And so I made a video, I think it was called like How I Turned Cardi B into Meme Music.
I watched that, yeah.
Yeah, and like that video got 1 million views. And that's where I was like, oh, that's really interesting. There's something here. And because, that opened up the door to making long form content that's much more monetizable and all this stuff. And so that gave me, I guess, the full permission, if you will, to say, well, keep trying those types of videos too and see if people bite, see if people like them. And I mean, I got super lucky. My audience was down for that shift. They were like, yeah, cool. Like, let's talk about this stuff, which is also pretty rare. And a lot of times when channels try to really shift focus and just completely change the type of content they're making, it's a death sentence. And I was very fortunate that my audience at the time was very open to checking out a new type of content. And it was a new type of content, but it was still in the same vein of like, people who are super interested in music and music theory. So, it made sense as a transition, but I still, thinking back on it, I'm like, thank God that worked, like
that was the perfect video. It was the video you needed to filter people who were interested in your work for the meme stuff, to then transitioning into, well, many of those people may also be interested in the music theory stuff, which was going to be the future of your channel. So like that was super smart. I think a lot of people do try to like go, 180, a completely different direction, and their audience is like, whoa, like what? This has nothing to do with anything that I've ever come here for before. And then they get scared, or they don't watch new videos, and then they don't ever see that channel again in their feed. So that was definitely a very smart video. I watched that. I wanted to know how the sausage was made, if you will. And it also established how talented you were as a musician. It's like, oh, you're telling me I would still not be able to do that because I can't recognize that like you can. But then it was just like, okay, then like more videos came out that were a little bit more advanced music theory, specifically for people who were into music creation, and those started to do pretty well, but obviously much fewer views than a Cardi B meme video, of course. But now you're talking to your people at this point. And how did it feel creating videos that, yes, were longer, but were getting significantly, relatively speaking, less views? Were you ever pulled to like potentially try to go back to that, or what was going through your mind there as you were getting into the new era of Charles Cornell's channel?
That's actually a really great question, and I like the note about did I ever consider going back to it, because I think that there's an interesting answer to that. First of all, the idea that like, okay, now I'm going to make this other type of content, it's going to get fewer views most likely. That did happen a lot. It didn't always happen, believe it or not, because we did post plenty of the memes that just kind of bombed, that just weren't very good. I think there was a transition where you stopped seeing like the crazy growth. Like we stopped getting 100,000 subs in a month. Like, the growth kind of leveled off a lot more. And it felt, I think every creator goes through a time period where it's very much live or die, where like, you're either going to get consumed by this feeling or you're going to push through it, and then you're going to learn that it's cyclical. Because the thing that was happening was every time we would post a video that got an alarmingly low number of views, you get this crushing feeling of like it's all over. It's like it's coming down, it's coming crashing down. I am washed up, like nothing's gonna work. My channel's gonna die. Everything I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have
Relatable.
to go. Yeah, it's like you just go through this thing, and even now when I've gone through so many of those cycles, because like at least in my experience, and I'd be curious, your input on this, but I find that YouTube is very cyclical. Like you're gonna go through periods where you have algorithmic momentum, you have audience momentum, you're getting great views, and you do a string of topics. It just happens to line up where it's like you have a bunch of bangers in a row. That happens, and then sometimes you're posting videos, and at the time we're recording this, we're actually in the midst of one of these slumps where it's like you're posting videos that you think you've done the research on, you think you've done the the process to like validate that the topic and the way you're framing the topic should be clickable and interesting, and it just tanks. And like you have no idea why. And even in those moments, there are still times of feeling like, man, are we actually like, could this be it? Like you still have those small, moments of feeling that. But I will say, like, I trust the process a lot more now. Like I trust that, like, hey, you know what? We're gonna have videos that suck. We're gonna have videos that don't do well. Forget it. Move on. Keep going, because you're gonna hit gold again. Like as long as you just keep applying the things that you've learned, keep applying the things that work on the platform, and like something's gonna happen, and it's gonna be fine. I trust that a lot more now. But in terms of to answer the question about did I ever consider going back to the memes, I hit this really weird point where I was like, oh, I can't. Like I cannot go back to doing those now. I'm stuck. And the reason I felt like that, and maybe this is probably, maybe in my own head, but I started seeing that like a lot of people started doing these, speech to notes thing. And it became a little more popular, and kind of went through a phase where there was a bunch of them all over the place. To whatever degree I had a hand in helping that happen, like that's super cool, because I think it's a really fun thing. And it's a great exercise with applying people's talents in music. I certainly was far from the first person to do that. I mean, there were a lot of creators in the past, all the way back into the 70s, that were doing things like that. I mean, even back to John Coltrane in the 60s. There's hints of this thing of playing along with speech, kind of, not explicitly, but it's there all the way back to the 60s.
Scatting, right?
Yeah. But I hit this point where I was like, if I go back to this now, I don't like the optics of that. I don't like what it looks like, because I felt like it would feel very much like I'm just desperate for views. You know what I mean? Like it felt to me like if I go back to doing this thing that I have now moved on from, and other people have now sort of taken up the reins on and are doing more, it's going to feel like I'm trying really hard to generate some viewership. And I didn't feel right about that. I was like, I want to make
for the wrong reasons, right?
Exactly. I did. Yeah. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it for the right reasons. And I didn't feel like jumping back into it would be the right reasons, because to be honest, when I stopped doing them because I felt like the joke had been played out. I was like, this isn't funny to me anymore. Like it's, some of them are for sure. Like there's always opportunity, but like, I just felt like it had run its course for me anyways,
I think it's smart to have transitioned and to find your voice in this. And it took that viral video to understand that, wow, there's people actually out there who like my stuff, and now you want to get into stuff that's more personal and more important to you, and wow, there's still people here, like let's keep going and let's just focus on them now. I think, I know that you and I are in a mastermind together currently with Antonio, who brought us together, not just you and I, but a bunch of other YouTubers who are all going through challenges, struggles, and wins, and we're all sharing with each other and such. And I remember you recently mentioned that, like, you still sometimes have trouble understanding exactly who your audience is. Can you go through what's going on?
I feel like I have no idea.
Why?
Man, I think, and maybe it's because, like I said before, we're currently in one of these modes where like our last few videos had not done great.
Yeah.
And so it was like,
it makes you question everything.
It
right?
really,
when that
it really does. It doesn't matter how experienced. I mean, you're way more experienced at this stuff than I am, and like you're saying this too.
I feel it.
I'm just like, it's wild, man. It's just like, you never get away from it. But I feel like there have been a number of times when we've really attempted to calculate how well a video is going to do based on as many factors as we can apply that we know are important factors to consider when making YouTube videos. Everything, title, thumbnail, pacing, opening, the first 10 seconds, first 5 seconds, like all this stuff that we've given attention to, and we've validated the topic through a series of questions and said, like, for these reasons, is this clickable? Is this something that might pique people's interests? And every time we come to the conclusion of like, yeah, I think it hits all these things. I think this might do well. And then it just doesn't. And we have no idea why. And it's just one of those things where I think, and this is why like mastermind groups and anytime you can get together with your peers, like it's just such a great resource, because your friends will tell you, especially your friends who are in that industry. So, like Thomas Frank is like one of my best friends, and I am able to consult him every time. I'm like, dude, what am I missing here? And he'll be like, oh, well, it's this. And he can see it clearly from an outsider's perspective, but neither me nor my entire team could figure that out. And so, sometimes it's just like these things that we just didn't even think about that are like, oh, well, no wonder nobody wanted to watch that video because it's this or this or this or this. Here's these reasons. And you're just like, man, I need a process to be able to see that, And so you try to create these processes for seeing as much as you can anyways before you post a video. But then sometimes it just doesn't seem to, at least in my experience, I mean, and I think it's probably comes down to just haven't learned enough yet. But like a lot of it just seems to be like, you can answer all the questions in the world. Sometimes the algorithm just hates you. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, it feels random sometimes, even though we know it's not completely random.
We know it's not. Yeah.
But you can do everything right and still not have it work. But then other times you scrap together a video last minute and you're like, oh, we didn't put everything into this. And then it just goes crazy, right? I feel like it balances out in a way, but it definitely is hard mentally to be a creator on the space. But I like the idea of just like, just keep going. You're going to go through seasons of YouTube, and I can attest to that on both my channels and you on yours and every other YouTube creator who's been doing this for a while. It's literally that. And the worst thing to do would be to give up or to keep changing things because one video didn't do well.
That's something that I think we do probably too much, is every time we go through a thing where it's like, we've made a couple videos that didn't work or something, like we're like, all right, we got to rethink the whole channel. Like we gotta come up with all these, and it's just like, no, just hammer away, and bits and pieces, you'll learn bits and pieces each time you go through one of these cycles, and then you just try to apply it as best you can. And I think at least, I'll tell you one of the biggest revelations that I had in regards to the algorithm, which I think it was Jimmy, Mr. Beast, who was like, replace algorithm with audience, right? Because that's really all that matters. You're not trying to game the algorithm. You're just trying to create content that your audience actually wants to watch, right? But there have been times when like you're thinking about the algorithm and you're like, well, there's a key to this. There's a way that this thing works. And I can remember through my agency, we got to speak directly with the YouTube algorithm team, and they used some language that to me was like, whoa, I didn't even realize this. They will say things like, they won't be like, so this is how it works. It does this and it does this. They will say things like, well, what we're seeing is that it seems, that videos that do this it appears that they're being prioritized more, or like, it looks like this is happening. And it makes you realize like, wait a second, they've built an AI here. This is not like just a piece of code that just takes in information and spits out the answer.
If this, then that, right?
Exactly. That's not how it works at all. This thing is learning. This thing is in some way thinking, right? And so even the YouTube algorithm team doesn't have the answers. They can't tell you definitively that if you do this, that's what's going to get views. What it really requires is to actually replace that word algorithm with audience, because and this is what Jimmy has done so well, and why every single video he posts goes so crazy viral, is because he simply has worked out the perfect picture of who his audience is, and he can say, I know that if I say this or if I post this, these people are going to be interested. And I think that's a difficult thing to do, because sometimes, I mean, how do you make that determination? You literally only have the data that you have access to. to draw conclusions about the people watching your videos. And we have done that in the past. We've tried to draw conclusions based on data that we have and analytics of people who watch our videos. And sometimes it just doesn't work. We've been able to identify over time some things that wouldn't appear in the data that become glaringly obvious. Like, for example, there was a point at which it was actually a funny meeting moment in our meeting room. Jake, who's my main editor, he was like, we were all sitting around and we were talking about ideas and talking about, we need to figure out like more details about who our audience is and like what they want to see and finally Jake pipes up and he's like, yeah, I realized I was editing the video and I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, well, that's an important piece of information to know, because it kind of opened this I was like, oh, that makes so much sense now, because I've made the mistake in the past of assuming that my audience is comprised entirely of advanced level musicians. That's just not true. Right. And so these are sometimes these fallacies that we can develop about your audience structure and trying to draw conclusions about who your audience is. And sometimes we can just be wrong. It's very obvious and reasonable why I might have come to the conclusion that like, I can talk about this on the channel because, they get it. And it's like, well, a lot do, sure, but not everybody. And I would go as far as to say probably most do not. That was an important thing to learn. And just an example of like the number of different things that we have to be aware of when you're looking at what your audience wants to watch.
Right. Like you could jam on a circle of fifths, which is like fundamental knowledge for anybody who's done any music. But then for a more general audience, I mean, they're out of that video at that point.
They don't even know what it is.
Yeah,
you've lost them.
Right.
Completely. Yeah.
Thank you for being vulnerable here, sharing the real true story of how things have come to be and how it's not all rainbows and unicorns at this point. But things are way better than they were when they started.
Absolutely.
The channel has given you this amazing, I know there's YouTube ad revenue coming in. I think you've done sponsorships as well for your channel. And now you also released an online course, which is incredible to go from Cardi B videos to now teaching music to people with an online course. Talk about the origin of wanting to create a course and how that launch went and how you launched it.
YouTube ad revenue has never been a huge earner for us. And a lot of the reason for that is because we often have to talk about copyrighted content. And while there are laws in place that are designed to protect, the creator in this instance, they make it very difficult to take advantage of those laws. And this is a recent change that has actually made things much better. YouTube is much better now with this stuff. But for a while, there was a culture of companies would hire, and I would imagine most of the time it's probably outsourced. They would hire these people to essentially scour the internet manually, looking for anything that they could claim, because these companies, think massive record labels, for example, they just pull in tens and tens of millions of dollars off of creator revenue that they've claimed through the YouTube Content ID system. And most people don't know how to fight that. I was lucky. I had some connections, people that helped me out. Adam Neely was somebody who helped me out a lot in the beginning. Devin Stone from Legal Eagle, he helped me out a lot in understanding.
Devin's great.
Yeah, Devin's fantastic. Helped me out a lot in understanding how to deal with this stuff. And, I have a system now where if somebody comes at me, because my content that I make is fair use, it's very clearly well protected under fair use. I am able to discuss the content in an educational manner and use the content to show and then talk about. That is perfectly legal.
Yeah, it's probably the most clear version of that, actually.
I believe it is, yes. And so, but you have to fight to get there. You have to fight to get these claims released. And most of the time, people will stop at they submitted. They're scared, first of all, to even submit a dispute, which doesn't. I mean, you're not in danger of getting a copyright strike if they reject a dispute. So you do that, and then they always reject the dispute, regardless of your rationale, because there is no consequence. YouTube has not built a system where there's any consequences for fraudulent claims. So it just doesn't exist. So they're like, well, why would we say, oh, you're right, sorry? There's no point. It's just like, say no, because the only thing you can do at that point is submit an appeal. And that is very scary. It's a very scary worded process. And YouTube's like, hey, just so you know, if you do this, they can come after you. They can sue you. You can get a copyright strike, all this stuff. And then you learn no company is going to actually reject your appeal, because it would endanger the precedent that they have. They've got this nice little system where they can mostly unbothered go and just round up people's money and just take it for themselves. And so they have this system going on. They don't want to jeopardize that. And they know that in a court of law, I would be right. So they don't want to risk that precedent being set in a court of law because it would put the whole system at risk. And so I've never lost an appeal ever. So anyways, that was a roundabout way to say YouTube ad revenue.
No, but that's huge. I mean, that's wow.
Yeah,
that's a huge thing to understand. Like, thank you for sharing that. I didn't even know that.
It's a very big thing to understand. Yeah. Like, I've never lost an appeal, knock on wood, but so, YouTube ad revenue has never been super great. And also I'm in a niche where the CPMs aren't fantastic. It's not like being in finance or anything like that. It's a lot less for the same number of views. So that's
Charles and I are in this mastermind group with Steve Chu, who's from My Wife Quit Her Job, and he was sharing some of his numbers. And Charles and I were like,
insane.
What?
Like, what
This
are
isn't
we
fair.
doing? Why are we even in this? I got to make a new channel.
You need to do piano, like invest into a 401k.
Yeah. Piano, music business building. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually, that's really important stuff that not a lot of students are getting, especially in collegiate settings too. I mean, higher education oftentimes with music does not focus on, hey, how are you actually going to take this knowledge and go make a living?
That's
a
true.
big thing that people leave
That
out.
is true.
And that's one of the things that we're hoping to try to, fill in the gaps with the course platform. But yeah, so, sponsorships, did a bunch of sponsorships, but very quickly realized like, man, that has its limitations. You are still beholden to a boss in a sense, because, now you're making content to fulfill someone else's needs and you are helping them build their dream. Right. And so that was something where I was like, well, there's two things going on here. Number one, helping somebody else build their dream, all for helping people. But, if it's some massive company coming in, like, I don't know, insert any big YouTube sponsor here.
Yeah. NordVPN.
Yeah. They don't need my help. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever. Then the other thing too, is I realized like, hey, my audience cares way less about NordVPN than they do about something I'm doing, And so that was the initial thing where it was like, well, why don't I become my own sponsor in a sense? Why don't I, try to create something where not only can we create a really great product that can deliver hopefully things to our customer base that are extremely helpful and can help them push them down their path of learning music, but it can also be coming directly from me. So it gives people a little more trust and incentive to want to participate and want to support us. It's just to me, it feels a lot better just in general as like a way to ask people to take action on something. Like if I ask people to take action on NordVPN, it's just like, sure, okay, like you could.
NordVPN's great, by the way. Like, let me just clear that up for everybody who is a user. And
I've had NordVPN.
Yeah, same.
Like I've used it, and it's very, very cool for sure. But it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm weighing the two options of saying like
being your own sponsor is perfect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I think it makes a lot more sense for the audience. It makes a lot more sense for people who are looking for ways to support you. And so that was kind of the idea behind, saying like, let's just build our own thing. And so we started building, and my idea from the get-go was never to build a course. My idea was to build a library of courses, which immediately I was like, oh, geez, that's like, because how much work that is, it's a lot of work, right? And we're still in the midst of it. We're still working on it. And right now we've got about 7 courses available and launching. We launched initially just out of curiosity. Like I can talk about, depending on what you want me to go into, I can talk about like the specific methods in which we launched and whether that like if they were difficult or whether they posed an issue, like whatever however much detail you want me to go into, I'm happy to talk
sure.
about.
I'm curious about how you let this audience who has gotten to know you through YouTube learn that you now have something for sale.
Yeah, essentially what we started doing is rather than taking sponsors on our videos, we were simply our own sponsor. So we just had sections at the end of the video or, maybe a quick mention in the middle or something where we just were like, hey, instead of saying like, today's sponsor is NordVPN, it would be more like, I just put out this thing. If you're interested in learning, blah, 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 you can find it, link in the description below. All the same stuff that you say a lot of the times for sponsors, we were just saying for our own products. And that was, still today we're almost 2 years in since launching the first course. And that has still been, and this is one of the things where it's like, you and I have talked about this, and this, I need to get it together with this side of stuff. But that has been the only way that we've ever told people about that we have anything available, which is powerful because, I do have the opportunity to reach a lot of people. So that helps. But
you mean, in other words, no email list, drive into that,
right,
and that kind of thing. So, but the power of a platform, right, to let people know about something. And Cornell Music Academy, I think, is the name of it.
Yeah, so we actually just discontinued the Cornell Music Academy in its first sort of stage, right? That was kind of the first chapter of it. And we have now converted that over into the new venture, which I'm really, really excited about. It's called betterpiano.com.
Nice.
And Better Piano is essentially a platform where I wanted to create something where people didn't have to necessarily like pay me money to get value out of. And I know the YouTube channel functions as that as well, but I wanted to create essentially like this place where we just dump useful stuff. We do articles on all kinds of different music theory topics and piano topics. We have a whole database of mini documentaries, like 3 to 5 minute documentaries on just significant pianists throughout history and all types of different genres. We've been working on this library of all these, pianists, and we're up to hundreds right now of free exercises, all with video. Each one is its own video, and you can play along and all that stuff with downloadable PDFs and all kinds of things like that. The plan is, and what we're working on currently is, I want to have a library of thousands of free exercises that anybody can go on the site and at any point just like dive in. Hey, I want to work on major, scales or something.
Like a Khan Academy, similar
situation. Just jump in and pick a topic and pick a particular, pathway or direction and just get in there and do some practicing. But of course we have the courses, which is, when you're a member of Better Piano, then you get access to our full library of courses. And in addition to courses, you also get access to an expanded exercise database with all the exercises that go with those courses. And also we are working on a live masterclass workshop type of thing with regularity. We are in contact with a lot of like amazing pianists out of New York City and stuff like that, and we're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff there. So that's where it's currently at, and it has been so much work to build this thing. I know this from building all the stuff that you've built, but it's just like it feels like it never ends. Like, just being in the build process and going, man, we have just this monumental mountain of tasks to get through.
But the courses are generating revenue, right? I think I remember you saying they're doing extremely well, and now you have a little bit of diversification in the income that's coming in, and you're doing something.
Yeah, that's so huge. Yeah,
it is huge, and again, the biggest thing is you now have something that is your own, that you are proud of. I know you are. And betterpiano.com. Go ahead and check it out. No offense to Cornell Music Academy, but that sounded like, Berklee School of Music, right? That's like,
it's a lot.
Right. And so betterpiano.com with now free information that people can go in. So go ahead and check that out if you're curious. And people can upgrade to a membership to unlock a bigger library, more exercises, more access. This is the kind of stuff we teach her, and it's so cool to see you doing it and to hear the origin story and to get to where you're going now. And we'll have to check in with you in the distant future to see like where things end up. And I know you and I are going to stay connected, and hopefully we can meet up in Denver with Thomas and have a coffee there or something at some point. But
absolutely,
I just appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and congratulations on this wild ride that you've been on, and this move to Denver with like almost nothing turning into these viral videos and now landing on something that is truly you is really inspiring. Thank you so much,
dude. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you having me. It's a blast to talk about this stuff and to just kind of jam on how to build things, and this is what your content is so great for. And I've been checking out obviously like all your course material and stuff like that, and that's very inspiring and telling me that I need to get it together with so many of the things that we're still not doing. So
no, you're doing great, and you have this superpower, especially in the music space. Plus, like the personality that comes with it, it's just so easy to connect with you, and I think that's why people love your videos. And even though maybe they didn't want music theory, they're still hearing it.
Shove it down their throats anyway. You need to learn this. No, thanks.
No, I'm learning a lot too. And I appreciate you. Betterpiano.com, Charles Cornell on YouTube. Where else can people go and find you if there is anywhere else?
Everywhere. I mean, I think TikTok and Instagram, it's at Charles Cornell Studios. I haven't used Twitter. I don't even bother. I mean, I haven't used Twitter in so long, but I'm there. It should be easy to find.
Cool, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Pat.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I sure did, with Charles Cornell. You can find him at betterpiano.com now, which is pretty cool. I love how he brought that in there. I know he was still in the works, actually, at the time of this recording for that program. A lot of it free. Again, betterpiano.com. And check out Charles Cornell. He has a really, really good video that my family and I love. It's like 4 different versions of the happy birthday song, like super easy and getting into advanced. And there's like a character named Jimmy that comes in that like he plays himself in his videos. He's super, super smart with the way he holds engagement on a lot of these videos. But then a lot of his more recent videos, as we talked about, are more music theory and for more of the musicians in the audience. And now he has a course in generating an income. And it all started with a Cardi B meme. Anyway, thank you so much for listening in. I appreciate you. If you want to check out the links and resources to everything Charles talked about today, head on over to the show notes page at smartpassiveincome.com/session673. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Peace out. Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. Our senior producer is David Grabowski, and our executive producer is Matt Gartland. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media and a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Catch you next week. Have you dreamt about being your own boss, but still haven't made the first steps to making that dream a reality? Well, I get that. Starting a business can feel super overwhelming with legal forms, paperwork, finances. It's a lot. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Taylor Brands. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal assets and the business assets separate from day one. From there, you get access to everything you need to get off the ground. Legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program, all designed to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free, personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, listeners of this show get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. All you have to do is head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? You record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips? Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART.